WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM's Master of Business Administration is designed to accommodate the career needs of professionals across a variety of work organizations. More information at business.udmercy.edu.
On 101.9 WDET FM, I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin. Today on the program, the University of Michigan's Innovation Center unveiled renderings of new buildings in downtown Detroit. A look at what it may mean for tech in the city later in the show.
And just like Nick mentioned, in case you haven't been paying attention to it, the University of Michigan Center for Innovation has been experiencing a lot of changes recently. The center broke ground on a new building in December. Scott Shireman took over as the center's new director in January, and new renderings were just released on the center's building in Detroit. The building, located between West Columbia and Elizabeth Street, is slated to span 200,000 feet and have 6 floors plus a basement. And honestly, it looks sleek, and that's coming from a Spartan. And with the new building, the center hopes to focus on workforce development. But what does workforce development and training look like today? We hear it often, and in what ways will Detroit and Detroiters be included on that mission? To discuss this and more, we have Scott Shireman here. He is the director of the University of Michigan Center for Innovation. Scott, welcome to the Metro.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So the University of Michigan started in Detroit before moving to Ann Arbor. How big of a deal is it to have at the center back in downtown Detroit?
I think it's huge. I mean, this is one of the things, if you hear what President Ono talks about, I mean, being back in Detroit is so big for our mission of being the university for Michigan and serving all Michigan residents. So it's huge.
So there are a bunch of students that are planning to bring, you guys are going to bring to the center. What are kind of classes or kinds of things that you're going to offer for the center for the kids? Students, excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to have a variety of programming. So we're going to have professional master's degrees, UN, Ann Arbor granted degrees. We're also going to have a lot of workforce development programs, which I'd love to talk about more about what those will entail. And then we're doing a lot of programs for the community, like K through 12, bringing high school kids into the center to do some cool stuff.
Awesome. So go ahead and go into some of those workforce development and some of the innovation that you all plan to bring to downtown Detroit.
Yeah, so the thing I'm most excited about is something that I call gateway certificates. And when I say gateway certificate, what I mean is these create a gateway for the typical Detroit resident who may have some or no college education. Perhaps today they're working in retail or a gig job. We want to provide a gateway for people like that into entry-level jobs in fields that have potentially lucrative career paths. So things that we can train someone in 6 months, give a credential, and they can be a project manager or start to work in sales or IT as a quality assurance analyst. Jobs like that I'm really excited about.
So basically you're going to be facilitating avenues to trades in different fields in that way. Right. We really have a strong desire to create opportunity for the community. And what drives that is we're really looking to catalyze economic development in the city of Detroit, right? And so we want to bring in jobs. We want to attract large employers, startups. And to do that, we just have to have the talent that they're looking for when they're looking where to place or grow their locations. And Scott, when I think about the University of Michigan, and it's a large university, public university in Michigan, of course, I think about the idea of having a 4-year degree or even a master's degree and so on and so forth. How important is it to have the University of Michigan putting their foothold into the trades and to expanding into the downtown Detroit area, of course, but to Detroiters in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big deal. And I do want to clarify, though, even though the UMCI, we're opening the center, it's going to be open in 27. Mm-hmm. University of Michigan never really left Detroit. There are a lot of activities going on. Faculty do a lot of work in the neighborhoods. There's a lot of projects to help Detroit small businesses. We have the Detroit Center in Midtown. So Michigan has been active in Detroit, but I think with UMCI, it's really going to be a bold statement of the commitment to Detroit, for the next century.
Yeah. So, you took over the center in January. How are you hoping to guide the center towards the goals that you are talking about right now?
Yeah, so it's interesting when I outline a lot the things we want to do, right? The professional graduate degrees, the gateway certificate programs, the community development. None of these things in isolation are really brand new things, right? A lot of elite public universities around the country are doing these. I came from the University of California system at Berkeley, where we had a long tradition of doing these sort of certificate programs and serving the community. And so what I really want to bring is take the best of what's been proven to work in these other cities and these other top universities and bring that to Detroit in a way that really is transformative for the economy and for the average Detroiter.
And, you grew up in Indiana, so you are a Midwesterner, but you recently
That's
moved
right.
to Detroit, specifically the Palmer Woods neighborhood. So why did you move to the city of Detroit, of course, and what has it been like living here for you?
Yeah, so I'm a new Detroiter. I just moved to the area in January, and I closed on my house in February. So I'm pretty new. But my wife and I, we love it here. We talk about it all the time. Like, we found great restaurants. Everyone is so friendly. I mean, that's been the biggest thing, is like how friendly people are. And, I don't really miss the traffic. And when I'm sitting here, in a day when it's, 70 degrees in April, I don't miss the weather of California that much either. So I've just been really, really satisfied. And Palmer Woods, it's a great neighborhood, great community, great old, beautiful houses. I'm really happy here.
I love when I hear that from, people, transplants who come into the city of Detroit. They stay a little bit and they never leave, which is one of my favorite things. I just love that about being from Detroit, just having that communal spirit, I guess you can say. But speaking of the city of Detroit, what kinds of partnerships are y'all setting up to include city residents in? What are you doing with the Innovation Center in terms of working with the city of Detroit once again, or any neighboring community groups or anything like that?
Yeah. So I always like to say education is a team sport, right? And we're on the same team, and we got a lot of great team members here in Detroit. It's one of the things that's been really impressive to me is how many people are really motivated to want to be part of the Renaissance, want to be part of the resurgence. And, so I'm working with a lot of people. So, you look at like what's going on at Michigan Central. You look at what Bedrock's doing in the city, working with those kind of organizations, because we're all trying to do the same thing. You asked about city government, working very closely with the mayor's office staff and, trying to help me, because I'm a new Detroiter, figure out how to acclimate myself to the community. We're going to be doing in May, kicking off, I believe May 23rd will be the first, a series of town halls, or I guess they're called design charrettes here in this area, where we're going to be inviting in members of the community, see the design of the building, see what we're thinking about on curriculum, and really get feedback. And we're looking to do that not only once, but also at the neighborhood level, getting into the different intersectionalities of community. So there's a lot we're going to be doing to try to get feedback from the community and make sure we're hitting the mark.
And, I think about the construction of the University of Michigan's Innovation Center. It's going to be finished up in 2027. And I think about the environmental impact as well. And I think about some of the things that you all are going to be doing construction-wise. What can we see in terms of just some of the things that you all are going to do to move forward Governor Gretchen Whitmer's goal of carbon emissions or reducing carbon emissions?
Yeah. So the university has a commitment to this. I'm not an expert in this field,
No
but
worries.
I have a lot of experts that I'm working with at the university, and we're very much committed to doing something that is a good fit for those climate initiatives. The university takes that very seriously. I don't want to say I don't want to get myself in trouble because I'm not an expert in this area.
Yeah.
But we are talking about that every meeting, how we can be better for the environment.
I love that. So what do applications look like for classes at the center? And are they the same as applications for classes at the University of Michigan, or are they a little bit more broad?
Yeah, for the graduate degrees, those are going to be the same standards that a graduate degree in Ann Arbor would be. But when we get into those gateway certificates, I would imagine those are going to be open enrollment. That's how it was when I was at Berkeley at the University of California, where we're really going to try to make it as accessible as possible for members of the community to come in and get a certificate. The community engagement programs will definitely be open. And we have, Saturdays in the D we ran last summer. We're going to be doing that again this summer. Look for news coming on that soon. But we're really trying to cast a broad net. We really want to bring, typical average Detroiters into the center as much as we can.
Scott Shireman is the director of the University of Michigan Center for Innovation. Scott, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you. Anytime.
That's right. That's Tia Graham, and I'm Nick Austin. And Tia, coming up on the Metro, the University of Michigan's Innovation Center unveiled recently a new build. Wait, that's not right. We'll discuss what Detroit's Wolverine Bar Association
There we go.
And that's the legal bar, not the bar where you're getting your gin and tonics.
I was thinking of rapping.
Fair enough. Is doing to improve Black representation in the legal field.
This is The Metro, right here on 101.9 WDET-FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin. The Michigan legislature is back in Lansing this week after a spring recess. The House and Senate leadership want to make progress on a $7 billion budget plan. Proposals include universal preschool and 2 years of tuition-free community college. The new fiscal year begins October 1st, but local governments and community colleges are hoping to see actions before July. One of the things we'll be monitoring, of course, right now is that the House in the Michigan House of Representatives is currently at gridlock with no majority between the Democrats and Republicans. So we will have to see and check out what's going to happen in some special elections that are scheduled to see if the Democrats are going to be able to get a majority, which many expect they will, to institute some of these changes. That's not the only thing happening in and around town. Metro Airport is launching a loyalty program for travelers who shop and dine at the airport. The Detroit Free Press reports members can earn gift cards and cash back and airline miles. But Tia, airline miles are something that always threw me off because when I thought about all the big time travel I was going to be doing overseas, I thought, oh, if I get 1 mile, that means 1 mile in the plane. Nuh-uh.
No?
1 mile means whatever they say it means.
Okay. This is subjective. They just make it up as they go.
You might as well just say points.
Okay.
They say miles. You think you get 1 mile on the credit card? That doesn't mean 1 mile in flight. You're not going to be able to get on a Boeing and take it, from 6 mile to 7 mile and think for free, like, boom, got it. Nah.
I think what I loved about this is the detailed look into the legal proceedings there. You went through that. You made sure you read your rights and said, you know what? You guys are making this stuff up.
I think I got a class action lawsuit.
I think you do too. And it's so funny that we talk about this right now because we are actually going to be talking about the Wolverine Bar Association. Founded in the 1930s, Detroit's Wolverine Bar Association was a needed space for Black people to explore all avenues of the law profession. A lot has changed in the profession since the 30s. There are prominent Black Supreme Court justices, prominent Black legal professors studying the law and pushing for equality, and Black lawyers in top law firms across the country. But it's also true that to achieve better representation, this country has a long way to go. That's because the percentage of Black lawyers has mostly stagnated over the past decade at about 5%. What do we need to do to change that? What are the challenges of getting there, and how would the legal profession improve if we had better racial representation in the legal field? Coming up this month, Wolverine Bar Association will celebrate its 65th annual Barrister's Bar. Joining us on the Metro to discuss this and more is attorney Alexis Smith-Scott. She is the board director for the Wolverine Bar Association and the current chair of the 2024 Barrister's Bar. Alexis, thanks so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, why do you think the number of Black lawyers in this country remains relatively low? Of course, it's in your opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a number of reasons. One, at a very young age, I read an article at one point that said that children in third grade, they begin to think about what they could be, what they would like to be, and what success looks like to them, right? By the time they're in eighth grade, that picture completely changes. And so children are at a point where they do not entertain the idea of attending law school, many of which have never stepped foot on a law school campus, on an undergraduate college campus, let alone a law school campus. So I think having representation and letting them know that the possibility of what they can be does exist and that they can indeed achieve that is important. And so starting at a very young age of getting children to entertain the idea of the law is extremely important.
I think about my first time being in the courtroom, and I was in college by the time I really sat in the courtroom, and I thought to myself, number one, I'm here for tickets. So this is the first time I'm in the courtroom, but number two, is this something that I never saw myself being. I never saw myself going to the court. Why would I go? So that's a beautiful way to kind of get this conversation started out. What does it look like, if you can, in Detroit specifically, in terms of Black representation within the law profession?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to know that, one of the biggest misconceptions when you look at law school and those entertaining the idea of going to law school is that you must be really smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's some component to that. But for the most part, you need to be able to outwork the person sitting next to you. And what we know about students of color is that they have no lack of ability to be extremely tenacious and be extremely hard workers and outwork the person next to them, right? They have come through many objectives throughout life. And so having the opportunity to perform and outperform their counterparts in a law school setting, we do well, right? But we're not passing the bar at the same rate as our counterparts. And so it's extremely important to have programs like the Wolverine Bar Association where we sit down and we work one-on-one to ensure that African American or minority students, for that matter, coming out of law school are completing the bar exam and successfully passing the bar exam at the same rate as their counterparts. And so it's important.
I was going to say, is this something that you see? Like maybe you'll see Black and brown students going through law school, but maybe not taking the bar?
Yeah, well, yeah, you see a number of that. I mean, I always say that's the unfortunate reality because, I do think that, the law degree is a very diverse degree, if you will, right? And so you see individuals like Dan Gilbert who went to law school but never had any intentions on sitting for the bar. And in fact, probably 1/3 of most of those that attend law school have no necessarily intentions on sitting for the bar, but see that it's a very diverse degree. I think it's an MBA on steroids, if you will, right? So that's a factor as well. You see that.
Yeah. And, when we think about just, once again, representation, make the case for us, if you could, for those who may think it's already good enough for racial representation within the law profession. Why do we need to expand? Things are happening in the way they should be happening. Why should we even think about this? Like, what would you say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you need to, Black lawyers matter. Okay, starting off. And I think there needs to be some level of representation when it comes to representing Black and brown bodies, right? We know that we're a society that feasts on Black and brown bodies, right? When we look at our criminal justice system, right? And so having representation that know with no uncertainty the struggles, the challenges, and the way in which that we can provide adequate access to justice for those that are Black and brown is incredibly important. And so having an organization like Wolverine Bar Association that has created a pipeline of success for so many individuals here within the city of Detroit and allowed them to have very fruitful careers and following their passion in a way. So I think that, the Wolverine Bar Association is the pillar for many individuals that did not necessarily have an attorney in their family, that did not come from a background of privilege or access to information. Wolverine Bar, for them, in many cases, is the answer.
So, before we get to the charity event that's coming up soon, actually April 20th,
yes.
I want to talk to you just representation. And I was thinking about that. And as you were speaking, I was just thinking about seeing people like Ben Crump on TV and some of the things and people that he's been able to represent and to take to high levels. What does representation like that do, especially in the time that we're living in, to see a Black lawyer going out there and fighting for justice?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at justice, we think about all of the ways in which the law has affected our lives, right? We know that at one point African Americans were looked at as 3/4 of an individual, right? We know that at one point, women did not have the ability to vote, right? We look at the fact that African Americans at one point did not have the ability to vote, right? And so when we look at our legal structure and the laws that are set in place, it dictates what we can do, what we cannot do, right? And so not having legal representation of those that the law affects is important because those voices being at the table are incredibly important. So, the role that Ben Crump plays is incredibly critical in today's society. When we look at what's happening with affirmative action and what has happened with affirmative action, right? That's critical. We even look at how in which we're positioning the Wolverine Bar in the marketplace. There are certain things that we cannot say in terms of how we are targeting our demographic. That's critical because we know that there is a very specific demographic that needs the help, assistance, and know-how that we can afford by way of Wolverine Bar Association. And certain, we have legal parameters that prevents us from being able to narrowcast in on that target audience. That's problematic for a number of reasons.
It is, excuse me, which I wish we could unpack right now. We're going to get into what's happening April 20th. You have the 65th annual Barrister's Bar.
62nd, yes.
62nd annual, excuse me. Just go into this a little bit. I know it's a charity event, of course, but there's so many other things that are happening alongside it that you all would love to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our annual fundraiser. It's our largest fundraiser that we host annually. We've been doing this, obviously, for 62 years at this point. And so this is one of the things that most would say Detroit got right? When you look at Barrister's Ball, there has been no other market that has been successful at putting on as large of a Barrister's Ball that Detroit has been able to do and do for 61 years, right? So when you look at an all African-American Barrister's Ball, Detroit hosts one of the largest across the nation. And we do that because we didn't really focus on this being just for lawyers, the coin phrase lawyer prom, if you will. We looked at this as making sure that we had civic leaders in the room, that we had political figures in the room, that we had Black excellence in the room. And so that was extremely important to us, and we made sure that this is a community-based opportunity. But this programming is crucial. The way in which we fund everything that we do for the bar year to come is based off of what we do and what we raise by way of Barrister's Ball. And so we get one bite at the apple every year, and we're incredibly proud of the work that we do annually, much of which is community-based. So when you look at programs like expungement clinics, we host those. When you look at things like estate planning, we do that for the community, for our elderly that are looking at making sure that they preserve. When you look at succession planning for law students and making sure, again, that they're passing the bar at the same rate. When you look at the pipeline of placing African-American law students within law firms, and I shouldn't just say African-American, but minority students within law firms throughout Southeast Michigan, we handle placement in that regards. In many cases, we are the flagship program that builds a pipeline for minority students to enter large law firms throughout Southeast Michigan. And so programming like that is incredibly critical and funded by way of Barrister's Ball.
And before I let you go, you're not a native Detroiter. You're here in Detroit. You've made it your home. You call it your home now. Why is it so important, especially in a Black city, to expand that representation within the law profession? And because you've made this your home now. So why is that so important?
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you say that. I mean, I will say this. I was born in the city of Detroit. I grew up in Las Vegas. I was a diehard Detroiter, and I was a child that always had a true love affair for the city of Detroit. So super, super glad to be back here. But it's so critically important that we have representation of African-American lawyers within the city of Detroit, particularly because we are still a city that is 80% African-American, right, starting off. When you look at the percentage of African-American attorneys that we have here in the city of Detroit and nationally, we're at 5%. When you look at the amount of African Americans being admitted into law schools, we're at 3.2%. That is the least amount across the entire nation, right? We can do better. So that's critical. One thing I also wanted to mention, every year when it comes to Barrister's Ball, everyone's extremely excited about our talent. We just announced our talent just 24 hours ago, so we're excited to announce that DJ Envy will be our DJ for the evening, and so super excited about having the Breakfast Club and DJ Envy in participation with this year's ball.
Sounds like it's going to be so much fun and a good charity event as well. A good way to spread the message about what the Wolverine Bar Association is doing. Alex Scott is the board director of the Wolverine Bar Association. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro, and good luck with the event April 20th. I hope that it helps spread the wealth throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Welcome.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. That was Tia Graham. I am Nick Austin, and coming up, Detroit will begin its second annual Demolition Week. In fact, it's happening this week. We'll learn more about what that means when we return. It's the Metro on 1019 WDET, and Detroit began its second annual Demolition Week on Monday with a live destruction of a residential home. To learn a little bit more about the initiative and what it means for the city, Demolition Director LaJuan Count spoke with WDET's Brianna Tinsley about how the event is part of a larger effort to remove blight in the city.
So Demo Week is its own week once a year. We do have, what we're trying to do is expand it to our other operations. So you will see a capital or a construction week. That'll come up sometime in the summer, I believe. And then we're going to have like an all department so that we can capture all of our other units. It's all because we want the residents to know, hey, listen, these are your tax dollars at work. This is what we do every day, and we want to show you what your work, what your tax dollars pay for. And we're proud of the work that we do for the residents, and we want them to be proud of the work that we do for them as well.
Okay, and there's an event happening every day this week. What can we expect?
So the big thing is going to be, of course, the live demo. We're going to have several community conversations where we come out and we speak to the residents about the demos that are happening in their area. They're free to ask questions about potential addresses or places of concern that they have. We have a job fair that's on Wednesday. We're excited about the job fair because it's not only for the demo side, but it's also for our trade, our construction trades as well. So if you have if you're a licensed plumber or electrician and you're interested in doing work with the city, we are hiring. So we're excited about that. And then we'll have another demo on Friday.
Okay. And I'm hearing from some residents, though, too, some concerns thinking that the city could actually do more than just these demolitions. There are some other steps that we can probably take to prevent even getting to this, to the house being in this condition where it needs to be demoed.
So the property directly next door to this one is a stabilized property. You can tell because it's got the plastic on the windows. At those properties, we actually go in, we remove all of the debris that's been historically in the rear of the property, as well as inside of the house. We clear all of that out, and then we install this clearboard material, which basically kind of stops the deterioration of that property at that point in time. It's made those properties far more marketable so that they're able to sell and people come in and buy them and then they renovate them. They take them to that next step. We were not prepared for the amount of success that we would garner from just doing that process alone. So that's a step that will continue for us. The city is actually looking at expanding our board-up program. So our current board-up program only uses plywood. We've seen such a success with this aspect that we're trying to figure out how do we incorporate the plastic or the polycarbonate over into our board-up program, again, with the intent of stabilizing that further deterioration. It also stops what is usually the bad activity that causes the deterioration to happen, because usually someone accesses it for whatever reason, they do whatever they do inside, fires happen, then it's a collapse situation. That's usually what the trigger is on the demo side. It's kind of where that foundation starts. If we can prevent that kind of access, we know that we can stop those properties from transitioning into the demo.
Do you have any rough numbers of what that success looked like when you started implementing this process?
Oh, I can tell you that we have so far stabilized over 3,000 properties, and I believe that the land bank has sold 80% of those. So for us, it's a significant win. Of course, we feel like it's only a matter of time before the balance of that 20% is actually sold as well.
Last question, when demolition week is over, what's the next step? What should we be doing next?
We go back to work. So we have a very strong focus with community engagement. So while we have a strong focus for demo week and making sure that we're touching with the community each and every day, we still, on a very monthly basis, we go out into the communities. We meet with them directly through the Doncast. If invitations or requests are made for us to come out, we'll do a cruising with counts. We continue to have our standard involvement and engagement with the community, but it's just real intense for demo week.
That was a discussion that we had with Detroit Demolitions Director LaJuan Counts. She spoke with WDET's Brianna Tinsley. This is The Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Nick Austin alongside Tia Graham. And another thing that we have been looking at recently here on The Metro are the challenges to home building in Detroit. In fact, yesterday we were speaking a lot about why it's harder to find affordable homes in Detroit. To dig deeper into the problem, WDET's Stephen Henderson spoke with Brett Crandall, Director of Design at 3 Squared Inc., a company that uses new technologies to build useful and sustainable buildings. They started the conversation by looking at why it's so hard to build affordable homes and how new ideas in design might help solve this big issue.
Well, what we're always focused on is what's the cost? What's the cost to build? And the cost to build is always, it's projected unfairly because we're always thinking of cost per square foot. But really, a cost per square foot is a terrible way of thinking about buildings because there are areas of a building that cost significantly more than other areas. Like kitchens and bathrooms are going to cost 4 or 5 times what like a bedroom would cost because you're only building a couple of walls and pulling some wires into that. And so to just think about like what's the cost, you're really projecting yourself at the wrong way to start the conversation. Because as soon as a builder's done building, all of that cost is just like handed to the buyer. So when a buyer gets the keys to the house, if a builder rushed the job and built it, with poor insulation, or they used cheap doors and windows in order to make this, those costs are transferred down to the buyer, not just in like the maintenance of these things, because things are going to start falling off, paint's going to start chipping, but you're also going to have higher heating and cooling costs for the lifetime of that building. And then when that window fails, you're going to have to replace that window. So we're really thinking about cost and just like an upfront, like what's it take to build this thing and put it in the ground? And that's why I see a lot of these projects in and around the city that are going up so quickly, and you could see the inadequacies of the construction that's going into it.
Yeah. So what are some of the housing projects that you maybe are working on or have worked on and that you think get more of this right? Consider more than just cost when they're designed.
Absolutely. So if you've heard of 3 Squared Inc., you probably think shipping containers because that's what we're known for. That's what we've done a lot of projects out. But I would say that the internet has probably poisoned the brain of a lot of people who come to us thinking that shipping containers are going to be the cheapest possible solution. All right, well, there's a lot of cost considerations into that. And I think there is an argument for cargo architecture, as we've come to call it, on a scale of economy. I mean, if you're manufacturing lots and lots of units in a similar or identical fashion, then there's a real argument to be had that could increase the buildability and the quality of construction because they are wind and water tight boxes. So there's a lot of benefits to having these envelopes that are steel and can be located into place, but a majority of those projects that we're working on honestly end up being custom residential projects because you don't want the cookie cutter thing, and the most efficient way of using containers is not the cool factor that has these large cantilevers and jutting conditions and everything like that. And so a lot of the projects that we end up working on are custom. And in that aspect, you could have some time savings, but it's not the cost savings that affordable housing solutions are looking for. So we've been working on a totally new product that is using generative design. We're using algorithms that are helping us to build models that we could produce housing at a more efficient rate by looking at the sustainability factor of the house, the window and door placements of a unique house based on its context, based on the houses that are around it and the tree coverage, the positioning on the lot. And what we're doing is we're combining all of those expensive portions of a house into a core, and a core can be manufactured at scale. And you take this core that has your kitchen, bathrooms, your staircase, and all of your mechanical units all into this one core, and you replicate that over multiple homes. And this core can be placed in a number of envelope systems that can make the benefits of sustainability and of manufactured housing. So we're looking at steel building envelopes. We're exploring SIP panels, so that's the structural insulated panels. So the envelope of the house can be built in a unique way, and we can have unique looking houses that are all built using the same technologies, but each one is unique to its placement on the lot given the context. Because what we want to avoid is oftentimes when you get into affordable housing, that scale of economy overrides the whole conversation. And so it's just cookie cutters. We've all seen those neighborhoods where it's just rows and rows of identical homes.
Sure.
And, you know, the housing that we as designers and architects put into the world has a huge impact on the urban fabric. And that's the last thing that we want to do to Detroit or the surrounding area is just have these cookie cutter homes, soldiers in a row. We really want to ensure that each one of these homes is designed for its unique context.
Yeah.
I am building my own home. It would be my prototype of the home, H-O-U-M, that's phonetic spelling. And that's in collaboration with 3 Squared. And we're going to be building that in North Corktown. The hardest part of that project is finding the laborers in order to do it. People to actually put concrete into the ground, the plumbers, the electricians, and they're booked out, and you can't argue with their price because they're the only ones available to do it. So whatever they say, so this price fixing of general contractors and all of those subcontractors is just continuing on the rise, let alone if building materials don't ever come back down in price, which we're not projecting that they will anytime soon. I think this is here to stay. And so the cost of housing, I mean, get an appraisal on the house. The appraisal doesn't even match the construction cost.
Right.
That's the hardest part of this conversation is how can you make affordable housing if you can't even pay for the labor in order to do it? How do we make housing without government subsidies is a little beyond me at this point.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger conversation.
That was Brett Crandall, Director of Design for 3 Squared Inc. This is the Metro, and coming up, we'll hear about an exciting film playing at the Freep Film Festival.
Welcome back to the Metro right here on 1019 WDET FM. Nick Austin is here. I'm Tia Graham, and this week marks the start of the 11th annual Free Film Festival, a documentary film fest put together by the Detroit Free Press. WDET's and In the Grooves' Ryan Patrick Hooper spoke with filmmakers Hamoudi Jafar and Razi Jeffrey, for their new film Rogue, which will be played tomorrow night at the Free Film Festival. Here it is.
I would say it's probably one of the most undiscovered high school basketball stories in the nation's history. And it goes all the way back to like segregated times. They were one of the first integrated high schools in the U.S. So it dates all the way back to the late 40s. And so there's a ton of history. And we captured like a contemporary side of the story, a modern season. And we used the layers of the history to kind of elevate the stakes of the present. So growing up for me, like growing up in the 90s downriver, they were the best high school basketball program around. Like they were on TV on Tuesdays and Fridays. They had a production team that literally followed them. They had a beat writer that wrote literally specifically only covered River Rouge high school basketball. So growing up, like it was, you know, they were it. Like they were an extension of the Fab Five to me, like on the high school level.
I grew up in the 60s, and if you like basketball, you knew 3 things: Boston Celtics, UCLA, and River Rouge, because they were all the best.
They won 9 state titles in 12 years.
I mean, how in the world do you win that many championships? You just don't.
Back-to-back championships.
It's the gold standard of high school basketball in America.
This program is certainly back on top.
It's the winningest program in the state of Michigan's history.
They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 33, 5, 6, 7, 8.
The bottom line is who won championships. Nobody has done it like River Rouge has done it.
It seems really special because that's a community that you knew.
Yeah.
You were part of.
Yeah.
And to be able to go years back and actually tell this story, I love that. What do you find to be the most compelling aspect of this when it comes to the narrative?
Man, I think it's just the humanity in it all. You know, like River Rouge has faced so many obstacles. Like, obviously, if you know of the area, you know environmentally, there's a lot of issues. I mean, the air that they breathe on a daily basis is a challenge in and of itself. But it's just like it's deeper than basketball. You know, it's like this incredible place that no matter what is thrown at them, they still rise. I mean, the school district was ordered to be shut down in 2009, I think it was, when the state of Michigan started shutting down a lot of schools, and River Rouge was on that list. And so it wasn't even supposed to be around anymore. and they reinvented their bus system. They came up with these innovative ways to bring the student enrollee up and obviously keep the school district active and going. So I think that's what's the most compelling thing about it is it's the winningest program in the state of Michigan's history that really nobody even realizes or knows about. But then it also faces these insane economic and environmental challenges and still figures out a way to not only exist, but now they're thriving again.
Razi Jaffrey, you come into this project as a producer. What was attractive about this to you to want to get involved in? Because over the past handful of years, you've done a lot of these documentaries based in Detroit, based in Michigan, telling really unique stories that I'm grateful you're doing, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. I had heard about this project when Hamoudi was working on it. I saw this as a really special story. I spent part of my childhood downriver as well, growing up in Taylor. I knew the River Rouge story, as well. I understood it to be a very deeply misunderstood community and a marginalized community. And so here was a story that was bringing dignity to this community that is so misunderstood and misrepresented. And the primary story about River Rouge has just been around the racism, the history of racism, the economic decline, obviously the issues around pollution, being the most polluted zip code in the state. And so here I saw a really compelling story that, Hamoudi was telling, about the story to bring, dignity and attention to a community that hadn't gotten that attention, and to celebrate the community. I thought there was a lot of potential to the story as well as a story, and I think he had masterfully crafted the narrative up until that point. The film is very compelling and very beautifully shot, and so it made the pitch a little bit easier for me to come onto as well.
And now people will be able to see this for its Michigan premiere on the biggest night of the Freep Film Festival. The first film that's getting screened, which is always a big deal. I just want to kind of hammer this home for people. It's really an honor for a filmmaker to be at this place for the Freep Film Festival. It's going to be Wednesday, April 10th at the Detroit Film Theater. It's going to be a gorgeous place to see it. Of course, there's going to be a second opportunity as well, and people can check that out just by searching Freep Film Festival. But Hamoudi, how does that feel to get the biggest night at the Homegrown Festival where an audience is really going to be attached to what the story's about even before they see it?
I don't know how else to describe it outside of like a dream come true, because coming up as a filmmaker in the area, and I remember I was in attendance for 12th and Claremont when it was the opening night film there. And I was just in awe of the energy. I was in awe of, because it was a Detroit story, it was all obviously local folks, and the energy in that place was just unreal. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity. I'm hopeful that we'll have that same energy, and I believe we will. And I know people are really excited, and it's just like a relief. I think that's like the one other word to probably describe it.
What do you hope people take away after they see this film?
Obviously, the community, the story, the people within the story, they deserve to have light shined on them. Of course, the story is well overdue to be told. Number one, I obviously want to make sure that, audiences finally realize what occurred in this place, because that was my biggest takeaway when I realized the history that predated the 90s. So, tipping our cap to what was accomplished there is really incredible. But selfishly, as a filmmaker from this area, I'm from the Downriver area, I'm a child of immigrants, I've always put my head down, rolled up my sleeves, and just tried to get better at my skill set and tried to just advance my own career as well as my collaborators. And I hope that our work is recognized.
That was WDET's Ryan Patrick Cooper speaking with filmmakers of Rouge, which can be seen at the Freep Film Festival tomorrow night. This is The Metro on 101.9 WDET FM Nick Austin is across from me. I'm Tia Graham. And UConn, they did beat Purdue 75-60 in the March Madness Finals. They are the first team since 2007 to win back-to-back titles, pretty huge. The Huskies were able to shut down the Boilermakers from beyond the arc, only giving up one of 7 three-pointers. So, I didn't watch that game. It was 9:30 at night. My eyes were closed. I was asleep. Real talk.
That's okay.
Were you awake?
At that time?
Yeah.
Actually, I was. I mean, it's only one time that you get March Madness, so you've got to celebrate it.
My body said no.
Well,
so the Red Wings, they do play the Washington Capitals tonight at 7 p.m. This is an important game for the Wings and the Capitals, as both are playing for the final wild card spot in the playoffs. Just imagine another playoff game here in Detroit. That'd be crazy. The Wings currently hold the spot with 84 points, and the Capitals are right behind them with 83. So that's pretty huge as well. The Tigers started off really, really well in the beginning of the season. I know it's still early. I know it's 100-plus games, but they've been a little rocky. The Tigers face off against the Pittsburgh Pirates this afternoon. They've won 6 games and lost 4 in the first 2 weeks of this season. So like I said, it's been a little mixed, a little bit up and down, but excited to see what they're going to do this year.
Yeah, people are excited from the start. Fortunately, they're not as rocky as the team out in Colorado, but I gotta say, in walking around over the weekend, got a chance to see a Michigan Panthers game.
Ooh.
You had the Panthers playing at Ford Field. You had the Tigers playing at the same time at Comerica Park, and then the Red Wings also had a game. So it was really buzzing. A lot of excitement.
What was happening. I didn't know, because I knew that there was a Tigers game this weekend, but I had no idea what else was driving so much traffic downtown. I see now. I see. So it was a sports-filled weekend in Detroit. Looking forward to that. We have the NFL draft coming up. Looking forward to that weekend. I am so buzzing for that. I'm hoping Michigan does us right and gives us good weather to enjoy the NFL draft. However, you never know with Michigan.
You never know.
You never know. Before you know it, you're in a full-length winter coat and boots.
I just wear that for fun. I like being warm. A little toasty.
I feel that I do, but not in April, not in Michigan, not up in here. But speaking about up in here, in the groove with Ryan Patrick Cooper. Ryan, what are you doing?
Wasn't Prince who said sometimes it snows in April, guys? You got a problem with Prince?
First of all, why you flip that?
You're talking about snow. What do you mean, how do I flip that? I'm just riffing off what you build. You're the foundation.
Why would we hate Prince?
Informer, you know that snow's going to get blamed.
Today on the show, we're really going to get into the groove. We're gonna cool it down. We're just going to hang, vibe out, figure ourselves out, discover new music along the way, new releases from Detroit and beyond. It's In the Groove coming up on WDET.
Namaste.
That's the Metro for April 9th. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
The show was produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Phil Brandt. Our engineer is Nate Bender.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear and want to support the Metro, consider becoming a member at WDET.org/donate.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you tomorrow on the Metro.
Yeah, that's right. The Rockies playing Colorado, Tia.
I know, I caught that joke, and I chuckled.
But they're only 3-8, so they're not doing well either.
Nah, not well at all.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new master's degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. More information at business.udmercy.edu.